Welcome to Grinders Live. No, it's not the DFS pregame show. It's Grinders Live with me. I'm still here in the morning, right? It's a little half an hour extra sleep. Great. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blender HD, and we'll be breaking down this day baseball. We got some day baseball, not much night baseball. So we got an 8-game slate coming up today, and join with me is the man that I'm surprised is up this early, right? Usually, Grant, I think of you as a night person, and you told me that you actually got some sleep last night.
Yeah, no, I'm predominantly a night person, but I don't know what it was. Yesterday, I just felt awful all day, and so I popped some sleeping pills, went onto the couch at like 8 o'clock, and then all of a sudden, it's 7 o'clock in the morning today. I'm like, well, I probably needed that, but I'm a little bit rough shape, non-alcohol induced, which is weird for me. But yeah, I've been up for a few hours, been doing some research. I'm ready to roll.
Right, and we've been doing the research, looking at the projections. Lineups are still coming in. We just got the Braves lineup in. Freddie Freeman is not in the lineup today for the Braves, so that'll make the Braves stack even cheaper than it was, and they're going to be popular today. So we'll be updating you guys for the next 50 minutes or so with any updated lineups if you're not paying attention. Talking about ownership, that'll change a bit, and answering your questions in the YouTube chat about today's slate. And Grant, today's slate, the pitching options aren't that bad. I think we got a bunch of good pitchers, and then a bunch of pitchers we want to play batters against, right?
Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting slate when it comes to pitching. Like, you have a few clear top options that I'm probably not going to stray away from. I mean, up at the top, you got Garrett Cole, who's just been absolutely ridiculous this year, striking guys out over a 40% clip. It's a tough matchup versus Houston, but I don't really care. Like, I'm trying to figure out a way not to go with 100% Cole, but over on FanDuel, a lot of the bats I like are far too cheap. And over on DK, he's not really expensive enough at 10.6K.
Well, I think for a ceiling perspective, strikeout-wise, Cole's the top option. But just understand, the Astros are a pretty good hitting team, and they are playing in Yankee Stadium. So that's a ballpark upgrade for them. He's expected to be the highest owned pitcher, 46% in our ownership. But Grant, the bat, if you subscribe to Derek Carty's projections, actually has him as the second highest raw point play. Now Cole on DraftKings is 10.5K, but there's another pitcher that actually projects for 0.26 higher than him. That's cheaper. Who do you think that is?
Zach Wheeler.
There you go. Zach Wheeler facing against this Brewers lineup where Tyrone Taylor is batting third.
I hadn't seen that lineup yet. That is
Colton Wong, Vogelback, Taylor, Shaw, Bradley, Urias, McKinney, Molly, and then the pitcher. The Brewers have a team total of like 3.35. Both sides of this game. You have Woodruff, you have Wheeler. You have to admit Woodruff has better stuff, but the Phillies lineup is better on average. I mean, yeah, there's no Harper, but you still have McCutchen, Miller, Hoskins. No real Muto today. So that's a downgrade. I mean, this is the lowest total on the entire slate, 6.5 in Philadelphia, 61 degrees, wind blowing in a bit. Now, according to the bat, Wheeler's a better pitcher. Wheeler projects better than Woodruff, but like, I think most likely if I'm pairing up Cole with someone and I'm playing a cheaper stack, like Zach Wheeler, 9,600, Brendan Woodruff, 9,300. Those are kind of like the next two best options.
I mean, honestly, I think I prefer Eovaldi. I know that the bat probably doesn't like him as much, but I've been just hammering these Tigers bats pretty much.
Didn't they do well yesterday?
You're really going to talk about one game sample size of baseball?
Why not? They're playing in Fenway Park, and it's not like Boston's pitching staff is that good.
No, it's not, but Eovaldi's pretty solid. So they did well yesterday, but I believe that Perez still hit his K prop. I think he still ended up with 6 Ks where he was projected at 4.5. Eovaldi.
It's very similar to Pavetta the other night where Pivetta still had like 9 Ks and the Tigers still put up like 7 runs. Pivetta got there with 20 points and the Tigers still did well. So is it more of the fact that the strikeout potential, Detroit strikes out so often that the ceiling is there, but the floor, like it's a wider range of outcomes. Like I get why you want to play Eovaldi, but you could understand why if Eovaldi is going to be 29% owned, why I may want to play some Tiger stacks.
I mean, I understand it, but you got to realize too, yesterday it wasn't really Perez that was the one that got beat up. They hit a 3-run home run in the 10th. They had only had 3 runs prior to that. I generally target them with left-handed pitching. Like they're absolutely terrible versus left-handed pitching on the season. They are by far the worst. They're staying at like a 32 WRC plus and a 30% K rate. But this lineup going up against Eovaldi really isn't too much better. I mean, we look at their numbers this year. It's just gross. Like Ramos started off the year pretty darn good versus righties, hit like 4 or 5 bombs, whatever it was, and was just crushing. And then he hasn't really done anything since. Like we look all the way up and down the lineup, like Badu is pretty much the only guy that has been in any way like remotely decent.
And they're batting him 9th.
Yeah, I know, because I don't understand Detroit. Like it's baseball. I don't understand why people would try and play for draft picks, but that's the only way I can think of. Like Scope has been absolutely horrendous this year. Grossman has not been good. There's, according to Play IQ, this year, I know it's a small sample size, but this year versus right-handed pitching in their starting lineup, they have a 30.9% K rate. Like Eovaldi is a pretty solid pitcher. Like he's been pitching fairly decently this season, and Detroit's just so bad. Like they're so bad. I'm willing to like, yeah, you say he's going to be 26% owned. I'm not going to be surprised if Woodruff and Wheeler are both higher owned than him. Like I would kind of expect that.
I expect that though. Okay, but that's not all the ownership. How about someone like Michael Pineda against the Rangers at 7,500?
I don't mind that, but I also don't mind the other side of it going with Texas. I mean, Pineda is not a bad pitcher. He's definitely a guy that can get it done on any given day. Like Texas, obviously a lineup that we like to target pretty often. Pineda's had a little bit versus splits though. Like he's been a little bit splits heavy rather. This year, going back into the past, strikes out lefties at a lower rate than righties. Like obviously we want to target guys who strike out lefties more. I mean, Calhoun, Lau, Gallo, Dahl, all going to be in the lineup. And yeah, they have a few righties in there, and Culberson being in there probably helps quite a bit. I didn't see that he was in there. Like it's still a trash lineup, but like I don't have any problem with Pineda. I just prefer Eovaldi because I think that Texas actually makes a pretty interesting stack on this slate.
So you're more inclined to stack Texas against like an 18 to 20% Pineda than stack the Tigers against a 28 to 30% owned Eovaldi. I mean, a lot of the strategy in GPP I use, especially it's an 8-game slate. It's not like a 13-game slate. Is that you take one of the SP2s that people are going to use and you stack against them. So I'm like on this slate, like to me, I'm not playing bats against Woodruff or Wheeler in that game. So it really comes down to Pineda or Eovaldi. And I think I'm going to choose one, play one of the pitchers, and then play the stack against the other and hope I'm right. But I may actually be with you. I think I'm more, according to the bat, Pineda projects slightly point per dollar wise because he's 7,500 better than Eovaldi, but Eovaldi projects raw point wise much better. So I think I may be with you today. Maybe I do play Eovaldi and then I stack against Pineda, or maybe I do a little bit of both.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the main thing. It's more about getting upside. Yes, a pitcher can end up getting beat up, obviously. Like expecting runs, like you're going to target a pitcher that walks a ton of guys, and that's not really the case with either Eovaldi or Pineda. But it's more about fantasy upside for me. And like going up against Pineda, there's a lot more power in this Texas lineup than there is over in Detroit. Yes, they may have put up 6 runs last night. I think they had 2 home runs, but that's not really the case. Pineda has given up 2 home runs in 2 of the 5 starts he's had this season. And it wasn't really against great lineups. It was against lineups with some all right lefties that are just bad overall lineups in Pittsburgh and Seattle. He's a guy that gives up more fly balls than Eovaldi. Not by much, but a decent amount. And Eovaldi is more of a ground ball pitcher going up against Detroit that just is awful. Like I I get the full-on leverage, like game theory play of playing Detroit, but to me, I'm not seeing any huge amount of upside in this. Whereas with Pineda, like anytime Texas is on the slate, and Texas really isn't that expensive of a stack. Like Calhoun's batting leadoff at 2.7K. Lau is in there at 3.6K. Gallo, 3.1K. Garcia, who's been hitting some bombs, 3K. Dahl, who's a decent hitter. He just hasn't been that great this season, is at 2.6K. They're super cheap, and they allow you to pay up for both Wheeler and Garrett Cole. I would much rather go with them than Detroit.
Other pitchers on the slate. He's looked good this year. Is it worth paying $8,800 for Danny Duffy? Is it worth paying $10,700 for Danny Duffy on FanDuel?
Yeah, I do not understand the price tag over on FanDuel. Like I don't understand it at all. But Cleveland's definitely a tough lineup. Duffy's always been a guy that I've targeted in the past. His price tag is finally caught up, and he's really a guy that's a lot worse versus righties. And outside of Rosario, he's probably going to have 8 guys in that lineup that are righties. He's since the beginning of last season giving up 43% fly balls to righties and only striking them out at 24% clip. So I'm not really on Duffy at all. Like, it just doesn't seem worth it to me. And he's definitely due for some negative regression. So looking at his numbers, you know what his ISO versus righties are this season?
8 million.
No. 12.
Okay.
I think he's given up 1 extra base hit and 90 at bats versus righties. And he's still giving up 32% hard contact, 39% fly ball rate. He's had a few decent matchups, and I think that's kind of why. But he's definitely due for some negative regression. Honestly, Cleveland, I think you're always a slate IQ guy, right?
Right.
I think Cleveland grades out as the highest leverage spot on the entire slate because.
Well, how owned do you think Duffy's going to be? I don't think Duffy's going to be that owned.
I mean, no, I think it's more
percentage-wise versus the field. I mean, I'm taking a look at Slate IQ right now. That just came out. Yeah, Cleveland right now has a 5% chance of being the winning stack and only own 2.8% of the field. But I don't think that has anything to do with Duffy. I mean, I don't think you're getting leverage on Duffy on his ownership. It's just that Duffy is a much worse pitcher than the field thinks he is. Like, it's one of those things where today, not many people are rostering Duffy, but not many people are playing Indians bats against him.
Yeah, that's basically it. Like, people assume that Duffy is a good pitcher, and like, are we any more certain that he's better than he was last season? I mean, his xFIP is definitely better. Part of that probably comes into the fact that it's been terrible weather this early on in the season. Like, he's been playing some pretty bad teams, like lefty versus Tampa Bay. We know that Tampa Bay is not good versus lefties. Lefty versus Detroit, that literally the worst team in the league versus lefties. Played well against Minnesota. Still had a decent amount of fly balls there. And played well versus Cleveland and LA at the beginning of the season, but it was cold out. Like, it was not good hitting weather. So he's just kind of lucked into good spots all season long outside of Minnesota, which he did well last time. Like, Cleveland definitely makes an interesting stack, especially considering that Duffy may have some problems versus righties if he goes back to how he was pitching in the past, and he's definitely due for some negative regression.
How about the other cheap nonsense on the slate? Are there any other pitchers that, I mean, we see like Taijuan Walker, Drew Smiley, even like Ryu is down to 7,900 against Oakland. I'm not a huge fan of lefties against Oakland, but I mean, Lance McCullers is a good real life pitcher, but do you really want to play him against the Yankees in Yankee Stadium? Like McCullers, I see, I could see him getting 9 strikeouts. I could also see him getting 9 walks and giving up 8 runs. So, I mean, he's not going to be that owned. I mean, he gets some ownership, but I don't think in that game, I think McCullers is going to be low owned, and the Yankees are also going to be low owned. And I know from talking beforehand that you're more on the Yankee side than the McCullers side.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on both. Like, obviously, match versus the Yankees is not a good one. McCullers is a guy that's either really good or really bad. It kind of depends on if he has that control. He hammers in that curveball really often versus lefties. But like, there's a lot of righties in this lineup. And yes, he's a pretty extreme ground ball pitcher going up against righties because he's got that the slider sinker combo. But he can definitely get beat up at any given time. Like, regardless of if he ends up walking, this is a guy that can end up with a just horrible start. And the Yankees lineup is really the type of lineup that can end up doing that. We look back to the beginning of last season, not really a huge fly ball pitcher, but he gives up a lot of hard contact to both sides of the plate. And this is a lineup that hits the ball super hard. It's solid all the way from the top to the bottom. But yeah, it was mostly just looking at ownership. Like, the highest owned guy for the Yankees is Stanton at 8%. And
he's pretty cheap on DraftKings. He's like 4,400.
Yeah, he's 44. No one's over 5K for this Yankees lineup. Like, Yankees have been perpetually underpriced for weeks, probably the entire season. I don't know. I didn't play him a ton at the beginning of the season, but I have in recent weeks. And they're just a team that is good, and you can easily fit them in with Cole, with Wheeler. Like, it's not hard to do. Just don't play LeMahieu, and you can throw in Stanton, Judge, Urshela, Ford, Hicks in there, and you're averaging like 3.5K per batter. It's not that hard to do. And like, at the beginning of the show, we were talking pre-show, like my favorite stack was the Blue Jays. And we talked about how going up against Mike Fiers is rarely a guy that ends up getting blown up. He can give up a decent amount of bombs, but it profiles really well. But it looks like they're going to be pretty decently owned. I mean, Simeon's coming in as 20% owned. Vlad's coming in at 16% owned, and they're not cheap. I think the better way to do it is go with guys like Grichuk, Teoscar, Biggio, and Gurriel. Like, maybe throw one of Simeon or Guerrero in there, but like, you're basically betting on him having more home runs than he normally does, which Fiers hasn't looked real good this season. He's a guy in the past that has been a bad pitcher, but just generally doesn't get beat up. He's kind of made for Oakland. Like, playing in that ballpark, huge fly ball pitcher, gives up a decent amount of hard contact, but the balls don't end up flying out of the ballpark because it's generally cold there. Like, it's got big foul ground, so there's a lot of flyouts in foul ground, a lot more than there is in other ballparks. So he just grades out as a positive pitcher for that. But like, he did not look good in his first outing, and he's getting old. Like, he's been around for a long time. I remember rostering Mike Fiers for Houston back when I first started playing DFS in like 2014. But like, I'm just worried about the ownership, and we kind of talked about that a little bit.
How about these two pitchers in the Mets-Cardinals game? I know Roth on his weather report. So some people may ask about the rain chances there. Roth has it as yellow-green. Says nasty little storm complex should pop before the game. It should be clearing before the game start. Chance for a late start, but otherwise fine. Winds out to right at 10 to 15 miles an hour. So there's to me, I'm not treating this slate as any type of weather contingency whatsoever. But Taijuan Walker against the Cardinals. I mean, he's a decent pitcher, right? John Gant, maybe not as much so, but I mean, we currently have Taijuan Walker at 1% projected ownership, and I mean, he's 7,500. Like, in that range of Eovaldi, Pineda, like Walker, like that range. I mean, obviously, I mean, you said you're higher on Eovaldi. I think I mean, you should be. The projections would say that. But for 7K, what are your thoughts on Walker against the Cardinals?
He's kind of due for some negative regression. Like, we look at his numbers on the season.
Maybe it doesn't happen today. I
mean, maybe it doesn't happen today, but you can say that virtually about any pitcher at any given time. As long as they're a major league caliber pitcher, there's no guarantee they won't just have some huge positive, like, just luck. Like, they can get lucky. Walker's a guy that's sitting at 13.3% walk rate on the season. Granted, a lot of that is because of his one tough outing versus Chicago, and he did only give up one walk in his last start versus Philly. But overall, like, he's not really got any great numbers at all. Like, he's a slightly above average strikeout guy. That's what he's got. He gives up a decent amount of line drives, decent amount of fly balls, a lot of hard contact. And we look at a guy that has a 41% hard contact rate on the season, and he's only got like a 75 ISO against. It doesn't really make sense. Part of that's probably because of the ballpark that he ends up pitching in most of the time. part of it's just because of luck. He's only given up 1 home run on the season, which really doesn't make sense for a guy that gives up this much hard contact. He's going up against St. Louis. St. Louis really isn't a bad lineup. So I get the thought process behind playing him. I have zero interest in him when we have like literally 6 or 7 viable pitchers.
I think there are more pitchers to play than stacks to play, actually.
I mean, yeah, well, let's see. There's an 8-game slate. We got Cole, Wheeler, Woodruff, Eovaldi, Pineda. You can make the argument for Duffy or Walker. Make the argument for McCullers. So we're pretty close to like having we have 4 teams that are probably just not worth it. Not worth it at all. That's the Astros, Phillies, Brewers, not really worth playing. Probably not Detroit just because they're a bad overall lineup. And then probably Oakland. Like Ryu is a solid real life pitcher, doesn't really get beat up. It's not a good ballpark. So like those are the teams that are kind of out of it, but we don't have a single team over a 5 implied run total. And
yeah, but we're gonna have some chalk today. That they updated the ownership. Before we get into bats, just want to let everyone know about the Super Draft free roll for the NBA. I believe it's for tonight's slate in the NBA for the Brooklyn versus Dallas game at 7:30 Eastern tonight. So if you go on to Super Draft, $2,500 in prizes, $500 to first place, 5 entries per person, 3,000 entries in the contest. It's a free roll. So just go over there, play it for the NBA showdown. I'm done. I'm out of NBA mode. So like I'm gonna leave all the money to you people if you want to play on Super Draft. I know Grant, you play a ton on Super Draft because you did Grant. If there was a Bulgarian site that you needed to go to Google Translate in order to switch and whatever, like to even read like what the rules were, you're probably playing on that type of site. I mean, like to me, you're known as, okay, DraftKings, FanDuel, I'll passe. Like if there's, my fantasy football, the .io, something, some site that like 10 people are playing on, but they're really horrible people, you're probably over there taking their money.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much play any side that has an edge. And I mean, I don't know. I cleared a lot of money over on Super Draft last year. I've cleared a lot of money over on Super Draft this year. Like there's overlay every single day. There is worse competition because most of the main guys don't have time. Like if you're playing 400K or 100K over on DraftKings and FanDuel every single day, you don't have time to go throw in a few hundred, maybe $1,000 worth of lineups over on Super Draft. So like that's kind of where I've gotten my edge, is learning everything about smaller sites and then making it so it's not a huge time commitment any single time that I have to end up playing over there. So yeah, Super Draft's absolutely fantastic. It's my favorite site. I enjoy it. I play there pretty much every single day.
And we now have Super Draft in Lineup HQ, and you could sign up for Rotogrinders Premium. You get all of our projections. You get for everything. You get Lineup HQ for all 4 sites: DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, Super Draft. Get the full use of the optimizer, of the projections, of all the content. Click the link in the description. Get $10 off your first month for Rotogrinders Premium Single Sport or the full combo. You get everything. MMA's coming up. I always use it for MMA, PGA, NHL, whatever you need. We got it. So for the bats today, according to our ownership projections, the chalk stacks look to be Atlanta, Washington, Toronto. That I mean, if you just go like Acuna, 31%, Contreras, the cheap catcher, 18%. Well, Freeman, no, we have to get Freeman out of here now. Albies is figured to be second base, kind of chalky at second. Then obviously, if Seming's leading off at 4,600 against Fires, he's going to be owned. Gomes as a cheap catcher against Smiley. Castro at third base. Trey Turner at shortstop. So like how are we navigating this? Because I think we've seen in the past couple of slates this Atlanta Washington game. I mean, it is one of the higher totals of the slate, but not like exorbitantly so. Me personally, since I play large field GPPs, I'm more likely to just almost X the game out stack wise. But you have to admit that Drew Smiley versus John Lester screams like we should be taking bats in this game, right? For cash games, I'm not saying to avoid this game, but I think that at these ownership levels on an 8-game slate, I think it's getting a little bit overboard.
Yeah, no, like the ownership really don't match up with the Vegas implied team totals. Granted, the game was at an 8.5 total about an hour ago, and they've moved up to 9, and it's still pretty much at a coin flip. But like Smiley's a guy that just hasn't been good so far this season. We look back to last season, he was a heck of a lot better. But he's also just gotten a bit unlucky. Like home run to fly ball rate has just been ridiculous for him. I mean, you look at his 4 starts this season: 1 home run, 2 home runs, 3 home runs, 3 home runs, and just a moderate fly ball pitcher. So it really doesn't fully make sense. He's just been getting real unlucky when it comes to home runs so far this season. So Smiley over on that side, like I don't think that his 450 ISO given up on the season is really that sustainable. And this is a guy that last season was pretty darn solid. Like not a huge sample size, but in 110 paid appearances, he had a 37% K rate and a 2.64 xFIP. Not expecting that at all. Like this is a guy that's had some promise in the past. He's been a guy that back in 2019, I believe, we targeted quite a bit because he was giving up a lot of bombs. I'm guessing he's somewhere in between there. Like he's a guy that has some decent raw stuff. It's just he's gotten unlucky so far. So I'm kind of off the Nationals, considering that Castro is going to be 22% owned and Turner is going to be 30% owned. And the Braves over on the other side, Lester was not good in his first outing. Like he was definitely not a good pitcher. He hasn't been a good pitcher for a while. Like still a decent ground ball pitcher. Like, and yes, he's going up against the lineup that has a few bats that hit the ball out of the ballpark and get a lot of fly balls in Acuna and Ozuna and Albies. But overall, I think the fact that the ownership does not justify the 4.5 implied team total. I'd rather go with a team like the Blue Jays, where they're going up against an extreme fly ball pitcher. The Yankees, same implied total virtually, and they're going up against a pitcher that can get super wild and get into some trouble. Or go up against the Red Sox, who are more owned all the way up and down, but no specific player is actually that heavily owned. And I think we just got a lineup for them.
Yeah, we have Vasquez is out of the lineup and Plawecki is in. So that'll actually increase their ownership because it'll make the stack even cheaper. Because Renfroe is now batting. Renfroe, it looks like he's batting 6th now. Yeah, he's batting 6th, and Plawecki's batting 8th.
I do love Renfroe. I do love playing Renfroe. I prefer him against lefty, obviously.
But 3,100 batting 6th in the Red Sox lineup is pretty good.
Yeah, gosh, this slate, I've gone all the way back and forth all the time. I still think that my probably favorite stacks are going to be the Yankees and the Blue Jays.
Well, how about this Twins lineup? Because we haven't mentioned the Twins, and we have Kepler leading off, and he's going to be chalky. But now we don't have Polanco, we don't have Donaldson in the lineup. Astudillo is batting cleanup. Kyle Garlick is in. Miguel Sano's batting 6th, and we got Nick Gordon, who apparently is in the player pool at shortstop. Is Nick Gordon a creative player? Have you heard of Nick Gordon? Has he played this year? No, he's had. It looks like he has some pitch hits or something is coming up. So I know nothing about Nick Gordon other than he's shortstop eligible, and he's 2K on DraftKings. So
he was the 5th overall pick. He's not really I think he's a speed guy. Not a huge power guy. Like did decent back in 2019, so he can steal a base, but he's not overall a great hitter.
But I mean, this Twins lineup is weaker than it normally is, but they're also facing Jordan Lyles.
Yeah, Jordan Lyles. The problem is Jordan Lyles is generally a guy I want to target with lefties. Just not really a great guy versus lefties. But he's still a bad pitcher overall, and he's shown a little bit of reverse splits over the last season. I'm not fully getting that into I don't fully believe in that. His slider is a lot better than his changeup or curveball. But still not great all over the place. So yeah, I'm starting to get more and more on the Twins lineup now. And Dean sending me stuff on Twitter. He had a McDonald's notification on his phone. They posted a screenshot. Like, who turns on the McDonald's notifications? I have no room to talk.
What notifications would come from McDonald's?
Apparently,
hash browns are ready. I mean, what would it be?
Apparently, it's because his mom had him download the app to get her a senior coffee. I don't know. I get messages from Pizza Hut, like text from
Why
them.
Why are you turning those notifications on?
I turn on text notifications because I want to know when a stuffed crust pizza is only $11. In fact, after this show, I'm planning on going to Pizza Hut, getting a stuffed crust pizza, and then going into just a coma on my couch again as soon as the slate locks.
We have the Nationals lineup in. Yadiel Hernandez is in batting second now. He's out of he wasn't in the projected lineup. So basically it's Mercer out and Hernandez in batting second. No Zimmerman. So Bell's in and Zimmerman is out. So that'll be updated in lineup HQ and on all of our starting lineups pages. So right now, okay, so we're getting the Braves Nationals lineup earlier than I thought. So basically we don't have the Blue Jays A's game lineups yet.
Yeah, which is something I'm very much waiting for.
But Springer's on the IL now, so we don't have to worry about like whether or not he's going to play. It just really comes down to who's going to be what the order. So like we're projecting
the order,
Semien
and then
to
if
lead
Jansen
off.
or Kirk's going to play.
Well, Kirk's on the IL.
Oh, he is? All right.
Yeah.
Something I didn't see today.
Right. So really, to me, I think it just comes down to is Biggio going to lead off or is Semien going to lead off? Like I
have to assume it's Semien. I love Semien today, but I'm just getting more and more angered by that ownership because I like targeting hitters going up against their former teams because generally they have a little bit more insight into their pitchers. But Semien also just grades out really well versus Fires. He's an extreme fly ball hitter, and Fires is an extreme fly ball pitcher that gives up a lot of hard contact. I mean, the main thing is like this lineup just sets up perfectly. Like the hard contact in this lineup, we look at Semien through Gurriel, so the 1 through 7 hitters. Semien has the lowest hard hit rate at 34%. But a lot of these guys aren't huge fly ball guys. They just hit the ball super hard and they strike out at a decent clip. Fires does not strike out anyone, gives up a lot of fly balls. Like this is literally a perfect spot. I mean, I am worried about the ownership, but gosh,
the ownership is only there, Grant, because if you take a look at the shortstop position on DraftKings, it's like Swanson, Turner, Semien, and then you're dead. Maybe Bogarts at 5,100. Just that does not that most of the shortstops on this slate. You got Bo Bichette there. Like I don't count Francisco. Are you going to pay $5,000 for Lindor?
Not the way he's hitting right now.
Right. I mean, if it was Lindor from the Indians, sure. But I mean, boy, what a waste of a lot of money so far this season. Is he going to have the Bobby Bonilla contract to get rid of him and then just pay him off the next 20 years?
I don't think so. I think Lindor, like this guy. So looking at his numbers, like he's walking at 12.6% clip. He's only striking out a 13.8% clip. Not getting a ton of hard contact, but a decent amount. He's just hitting a lot of ground balls. He'll eventually figure it out. Like it's not that far into the season. It's not like he's turned into Chris Davis where he just can't hit the ball hard and strikes out every single time. Like he's still like seeing the ball well. He's just not making solid contact yet.
Okay, so let's talk about stacks before we get into some questions from the YouTube chat. Hit that thumbs up button. Hit the thummy thumbs. Keep my apple juice cold. That's what you do in the morning. Keep Grant sober. Hit the thumbs up button. Hit the notification.
I don't know how that would keep me sober.
Well, you have to make a trick. See, when you do shows, we want the thumbs up button because that helps us with the YouTube algorithm. But if you just ask people to hit the thumbs up, they're like, why should I do it? Why should I do it? So I give them a reason. I don't know if to keep apple juice cold is a good enough reason, but maybe keeping you sober or keeping you drunk or keeping you alive.
I think generally
the pizza to Grant if you want pizza.
Oh yeah, keep me well fed with pizza. By the way, marinara at Pizza is just better than marinara anywhere else. I don't know why, but I'm just very hungry. I haven't been able to eat for the last 20 hours.
You're in Colorado, right?
Yeah.
So it's what, 10 o'clock in the morning there?
Yeah.
And you're even pizza? How about breakfast?
Again, I'm like, I don't know what the heck's wrong with me. I think I'm having an adverse reaction to the second vaccine, but I'm on the struggle bus and I have no idea why. Maybe I just actually have the flu that I've never had before.
Okay, so it seems like in the chat people want position by position, even though I detest talking like that, because if you're playing GPPs, you're not playing position by position. So let's quickly run through.
You want me to just hammer it out so we can get to questions?
Yes. Position by position. Okay. So catcher.
Catcher, it's Gomes, it's Contreras, it's Perez are the top options.
Right. Basically, you're paying down. Right. There's no one to
paying
pay
down, or you're rounding out your stack.
Right. I'm just saying that I don't. You're not paying for. There's no need to play for Salvador Perez today. I mean, like you just pay for a cheap catcher. There's plenty of them. Probably more like Gomes is 3,400. Contreras is
Jansen is 2,400.
Right. Going
Zimmerman not in the lineup.
I'm looking at it right now. No, Jeff Mathis is in the lineup, but he's 2,100. So, and Danny Jansen, I mean, they're bad hitting catchers, but
yeah,
you're basically punting a catcher. If you want to play Rortvet or whatever that guy's name is, I think Gomes is going to be the highest owned catcher at his price at 3,400. But for like cash games, you're essentially punting the position.
Yeah.
First base.
The spend ups are probably Guerrero now that Freeman is no longer in the lineup. Sano makes an interesting tournament option. Like, it's pretty much you're paying up for Guerrero, or you're just filling out your stack.
I could see going to the hitting fourth Astudillo in the Minnesota lineup. There's really even in the bat, there's no first baseman that project like insanely high. I mean, like none over 10 points. So like Guerrero's the highest, but I don't think it's that important of a position. If you're paying up there, you're just paying up for raw points essentially.
Yeah.
Second base, to me, it's Albies, Kiki Hernandez, or Semien.
Those are your only real options.
Is Harrison in the Nationals lineup? I guess he's
he's batting third, so he's not.
Yeah, he's an option. I guess he's an option, but at his price, I'd much rather just play Kiki Hernandez at 3,900 against Turnbull.
Yeah,
and I say Semien at second base, but Semien you could play him at shortstop. So at shortstop, I think I mentioned it before. You play. It's Turner, Semien, Swanson. I don't think you need to pay up for Bogarts. I think I'd rather place Turner against Smiley than Bogarts against Turnbull. So find the 200 and get that. Or you're punting, or you're playing Nick Gordon. You're playing our favorite creative player. It's Nick Gordon at 2K. Yeah, I just don't think that with the lineup construction, we're going to get into the outfield and we're going to find some really cheap outfielders. I don't think you have to pay down at shortstop.
Yeah.
Third base. What do you got?
Riley's a clear top option, followed by Castro, or you can pay up for a guy like Devers. I don't mind Biggio either, but
I would prefer Biggio if he was leading off.
Yeah, we don't have that lineup out yet, though.
Right. Okay, and then we got outfield. Okay, so the two ranges of outfielders, cheap and expensive. To me, I think if you're paying up at outfield, you're just playing Acuna.
Yep.
Against Leicester. I mean, he's the highest raw points batter on the slate, like by like 2.5 points over everyone. And then from the cheap stuff, Kepler 3,400 leading off against Lyles. I think it's and then Gallo against Pineda. I mean, Benintendi 3K batting second against McKenzie. Calhoun leading off against Pineda. How about guys bat lower in the order? Someone like Christian Posh, 2,300 against Leicester in the Braves lineup. Harold Ramirez batting fifth against Duffy. He's 2,200. I mean,
I like some of the Texas guys like Gallo, 3.1K, Dahl, 2.4K, Calhoun, 2.7K.
I think in cash games you're probably playing two cheap outfielders and Acuna.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In cash, you're playing Kepler and Acuna, whoever fits for the last one.
Right. And if it's Calhoun, it's Calhoun. If it's Benintendi, if it's Harold Ramirez, if it's whoever. Hunter Renfro's 3,100. He fits also.
Yeah.
But I think there's a wealth of really underpriced outfielders. I mean, they really should make these. DK really should make the minimum price to be 3,000 on everyone and start bumping these guys up. But
Yeah.
they don't.
Yeah. I don't know. It's always tough.
Okay. Is there anything different on FanDuel? FanDuel's a little bit different. But at FanDuel, when it comes to pitcher, do you pay all the way up for Cole, or do you play Wheeler and get better bats?
If you're stacking up Toronto, it's pretty easy to pay up for Cole. Me personally, I have 3 lineups over on FanDuel. It's either Cole or Eovaldi for me. I prefer Eovaldi to Wheeler, but we already talked about that.
Right? Are you talking about on FanDuel? I mean, Wheeler's fairly cheap. I mean, Wheeler's what, 9,100 on FanDuel?
I just like Eovaldi just straight up better. And just so you know, the MLB plate IQ projection has Eovaldi as a better option, although the bat I know has Wheeler.
Okay, well, they'll go to battle against each other, right?
Yeah, I'm just a bigger Eovaldi fan.
Okay, let's see if Slate IQ is updated. Nope, not yet. Okay, I think we're getting to question time. Is this what I typically don't host Grinders Live? Is this typically where I say, "Here, Devin's coming on"? Our producer.
Yeah, normally, but I think you're just asking me questions, so Devin can do whatever he wants.
He said it looks like in the chat that he's saving stuff.
I can come on.
If you want, you can hop on, Devin. We always love seeing your beautiful face.
I got a few saved up. I can feed them to you guys. We'll see how many 1v1 questions we can get for Blender.
Well, give it a grant. That's why I have a second person on the show. So
we have the shield. Let's start with ZZTV. Wants to know single entry GPP strategy. Surely it's not the Toronto bats, right?
What side are we talking about?
This is a good question. Let's say DK.
Okay, DK. In single entry, you're making one of 2 choices. I mean, this is what you should be thinking about every slate. Are you going to play the chalk pitchers, or are you going to play the chalk hitters? Most of the time, I tend to gear in single entry towards not playing the chalk hitters. So to me, the best single entry strategy is to fade Atlanta, fade Washington, fade Toronto. Pick whatever the best 5-man stack that you want from there. See what the ownership total of that. It's probably going to be low enough, and then you just play Cole plus Wheeler if it's a cheaper stack, or you could not play Cole and play Wheeler plus Woodruff. You could maybe not Wheeler Woodruff because they're in the same game. Pay 2 with Eovaldi, something like that. I don't think you're necessarily getting different at pitcher. I just think the Atlanta Washington game is going to be over-owned. And in single entry, I'd rather fade the chalk bats are going to be even chalkier. Like Acuna as a one-off, I just throw that out as single entry. I just because Acuna is going to be part of Atlanta stacks. Acuna is going to be a chalky one-off, probably in single entry be over 30% owned. Just hope he gets a 0. Hope he gets a 10 or something low. And then you play whatever pitching combination chalky. It doesn't matter at that point. To me, single entry strategy is about who you're not playing, not who you are playing. And me, I'm much more likely, what's the chalk, bats, remove them, and then build a line.
Grant, any other thoughts to add?
He basically went through it.
I will just take a moment to say, as someone who has been trying to daily grind the NBA and MLB streets, building lineups for baseball is just eons better than building lineups for basketball these days. I'm loving everything I can build in baseball. The One would like to know, any thoughts on a Brewers stack? I think you mentioned you did not like that.
Well, it's super leverage, but I just don't think it's necessary.
All right, Joe, FanDuel, KC stack?
I'm not on it.
We touched on our stacks. Maybe you want to go over the top 3 ones again?
I think my top 3 now are Toronto, Minnesota, and the Yankees.
Well, I'm waiting for Slate IQ to update for DraftKings. But looking at, if I could look at the stack projections, based on this, I like both sides of the Minnesota-Texas game. I think I'm going to be building my lineups literally after the show, and I will be having Texas stacks, and I will have Minnesota stacks. I'm probably won't even play Pineda in any lineups. But I mean, I'm just trying anything I do to avoid the Braves Nationals game. And hey, if it's 10-8, then I lose today. Okay, that's the way it is. But yeah, I think both sides of the Rangers Twins game, the Royals are okay. Cleveland is even okay against Duffy. I wish Duffy would be higher owned, so I would get more relative value out of that.
Well, the other day you were mentioning on the pregame show with James about some rather chalkier pitchers maybe getting exponentially more chalky once the slate locks. Do you think maybe Duffy's one of those people that could get more?
Duffy's too expensive. No one's playing him today. Like, right. Definitely not a FanDuel.
Sure.
But I'm just there's other good pitchers on the slate. I mean, like I take a look at this ownership on DraftKings now that it's updated. Let me move over here on my screen. Yeah, we have an updated ownership. So Cole's at 50%, Woodruff 35, Eovaldi 24, Wheeler 24, Pineda 19, Walker 15, Duffy 10. So it's like I feel like Pineda, if Pineda's going to be twice as owned as Duffy, I'd rather play Texas bats against that 20% ownership than Cleveland bats against 10% ownership. If I believe that the Texas and the Indians are like equal, like they project the same, like to me, I get more relative value by attacking Pineda than I do attacking Duffy. Like I would wish if Duffy was 30% owned the slate, I'd be having a ton of the Indians. So it's not a matter that I don't like the Indians. It's just that I just don't think I'm gaining as much in GPPs. Now you're gaining more if you want to stack against Cole, but I don't think you do that.
There was one slate last year.
Right. But it's the same thing. Like you could attack Woodruff, you could attack Wheeler, but I don't even think it's worth it. I think the totals are so low. The likelihood of them getting blown up is low enough that there are other stacks on the slate that are just as low owned that aren't facing a good pitcher. So really it comes down to that. That's why I'm looking at the Eovaldi and Pineda. They're owned enough that maybe I want to stack against them.
Just a few more minutes left. Don't forget to hit that like button if we get your question, and drop a few more in there if you want. We'll try to get to them before we close out. Next one comes from Jay. Last piece, single entry. Grichuk to round out a 5-man Toronto stack, or Max Kepler?
Grichuk.
That's easy.
I feel like that was answered in the question. If you want to round out the 5-man. Christopher jumping in with a suggestion during an earlier food conversation for a cream cheese pepperoni pizza.
Get out of here!
Cream cheese
on a pizza?
I had to leave the room because I was going to be sick. That was the hardest thing.
I would absolutely eat that. I'm a big cream cheese guy.
I love cream cheese.
I'm a cream cheese guy on bagels on a pizza.
No pizza. No.
Do people not know me? There's only 12 possible ingredients to put on top of a pizza, and once you pass that 12, you're not eating a pizza anymore.
It's so polarizing, and I can never remember where you are on this blender. Not pepperoni. Pineapple on a pizza.
No, that's not. No, there's no fruit on pizza. That's not a pizza.
I can understand the hesitance because it's adding sweet to savory. But I think myself and Kevin Roth are together on that one.
No, you have now turned a pizza into some type of meat cheese Danish.
Well, here's another qualifier: is I don't put meat on it, right? So it's a little bit of a different meal. So
now it's a Danish. Now it's a pastry.
It's a cheese pastry, sweet Danish that you bake.
Right, that's what it is. Right, it's not pizza anymore.
I could see that. Yeah. Adrian wants to know center. Wow. Catcher first base on FanDuel looks rough. And I think you guys would probably agree, generally speaking.
Does it look that rough? You're probably playing Vlad or Ryan Zimmerman.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a raw points position. There's really no value there.
Yeah, I don't think Zimmerman's in the lineup. So it's Vlad, or if you really want to go cheap, you can go Sano or Dahlbeck.
No, isn't Bell there now?
Oh, yeah, Bell. Yeah, Bell's cheap.
Right. It's just that I need to update my projections. That's so right. So, but it's a raw points play. I don't think there's not great value there. So don't be hesitant to just pay up for raw points, which basically means you're playing Vlad Guerrero.
Right. Matt just got here, unfortunately. Rolling out of bed a little late there, Matt. We liking the Royals bats today? I think you liked them better than Cleveland.
They're popping on Slate IQ, which is surprising. Maybe I have to look into that a little bit more.
But if you look at Slate IQ outside of Atlanta, it's, I mean, as of, I mean, this is the hour ago update. Like these winning percentages, like we see in Slate IQ, this is as of like 45 minutes ago. Atlanta with an 11.4% chance to be the winning stack, which is the highest on the entire slate. But of course, they're the most owned team. So like that doesn't do you any good. But then right in the middle, like there's a whole bunch that are all this, like we have Minnesota, Kansas City, Toronto, Washington, Boston, Mets, Indians that are all around 5 or 6. And then we have Texas, Yankees, Oakland, like all they're close to 2 or 3. So like outside of Atlanta, like a lot of these teams are the same. So hence my strategy today. Like I will not be playing Atlanta. I'm playing 80 lineups today. I will not have a single Brave stack, and I will have Acuna in very few lineups. And if the Braves go off, then I just lose. But if the Braves don't go off, then I have a ton of lineups that could win first place.
Like I said, pineapple is a polarizing conversation on pizza. I got a lot of opinions.
On pizza.
I like pineapple as a food. Eat pineapple normally.
Well,
Devin, I'm fine with this. Have a pizza, have a nice pepperoni, nice sausage, peppers,
little
mushrooms,
side of pineapple,
and then have a side of pineapple, and then as a dessert.
There you go, a palate cleanser.
Right.
Well, let's end on this one from Jay. Being that the Toronto stack isn't going to be quite owned, which is a better one-off, Kepler or Renfroe? DK single entry.
Renfroe. Kepler's going to be super chalky.
Right. I'm not a big fan of playing chalk one-offs in already. I mean, Toronto is going to be like the third most owned team. See, it's not like you're playing some 1%. If you're playing the Brewers stack, then Kepler ain't that bad. But I mean, they're going to be owned enough that I'd rather play a lower owned Renfroe than a Kepler.
We're over time, but we'll fit this one in from Michael. With all these good pitching options, do we trust the 50% Cola ownership in large field GPPs on DK?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a 44% K rate, and a blender might be fading him. I'm probably not.
Well, I'm not fading him, but I'd probably be under on him.
You do have like 8 other spots to get different, right? Right.
I'm just saying there's enough cheap bats, so I don't think the price is a problem. And people, we've seen already the first 5 weeks of the season that there's an ace on the slate. People just I trust pitching more than batting, and they just jam him in. So yeah, no, I think Cole ends up coming in around 50%. Yes.
All right, Blender, you want to take us home?
Okay, I'll take that. I don't know what I'm supposed to do at the end of Grinders Live. Typically,
we're
I thank
not
people.
crunching.
Hey,
not
hit
crunching
the thumbs up button on your way out the door. Right, we got Devin here. Right, we got Grant. Get him Pizza Hut. Are you gonna have Pizza Hut and you're gonna pass out by 1:00? Right.
Yeah, Pizza Hut doesn't open until 11. So.
Right, we have no MLB slate tonight. But you know what we do have tonight? We got NBA. We got Grinders Live. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. And I'll be back tomorrow morning to review this slate, because that's what I do on the DFS pregame show on 11:00 in the morning, Monday through Friday. But this was Grinders Live. So Grant, you got anything else to say about cream cheese? Anything? Pineapples?
Cream cheese is fantastic on a hot dog.
Cream cheese and pineapples, like dipping it in cream.
Oh my god!
Maybe
just close the show out. Close the show out.
Pineapples and cream, like you have peaches and cream, like with sour cream or something.
We're getting into some Frankenstein foods here.
Okay, crunch time's coming up for premium members next, right?
Yep.
Okay, so you could get Roth's and whoever cheese.
Cheese is
good.
Is
on. They'll be there for premium members. Sign up for premium, $10 off your first month. Click on the link in the description. I'll see you tomorrow for another show on Rotogrinders.com.